to the Redondo Beach Preservation Commission. Let me first begin by saying Happy New Year, because we have not met for the past several months. So it's great to see everybody here. And secondly, I'd like to welcome a couple of new members that are here today with us for their very first meeting. We have Peter Aziz, Commissioner Peter Aziz, who's driving, by the way, so no need to respond, Commissioner Aziz. We also have Jeannie Gilliam. I hope I pronounced that correctly.
I think you did, but it doesn't look like he's logged on yet.
Okay, and then we have Commissioner Jeannie Gilliam, and I hope I pronounced that correctly as well. So in welcoming our new members, I'd also like to say thank you because we do have three members that are no longer with us. They're around, they're not gone. But I wanted to definitely say thank you to former Commissioner Sharon Riddams, former Commissioner Benjamin Morse, and then former Commissioner Jeannie Penner Moore. So we lost a Jeannie and we gained a Jeannie. So we are. So in looking at today's and beginning with our roll call.
Yes, no problem. Commissioner Jackson.
Here.
Commissioner Giddens.
Here.
Commissioner Matsuno.
Here.
Commissioner McNerney.
Here.
Commissioner Aziz.
Here.
Commissioner Gilliam. Chair Caldwell.
Here. So we do in fact have our quorum. Let us move on to the salute to the flag. If I could have Commissioner Jeff Matsuno lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Okay. Put your hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge
allegiance
to the
flag of the
United States of America,
Republic,
and to the republic for which it stands,
which stands one nation,
one nation,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty and
justice for all.
All right, thank you. Let us now move on to item D, approve order of the agenda. Are we okay with the agenda? Let me ask staff first.
yes.
Okay.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Do we need to have a roll call vote, or can we just?
Please do. Please do have a roll call vote.
Okay. Let's move to a roll call vote.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll do it. Commissioner McNerney,
Aye.
Commissioner Jackson,
Aye.
Commissioner Gittens,
Aye.
Commissioner Matsuno,
Aye.
Commissioner Aziz,
Aye.
and Chair Caldwell.
Aye. We have approved the order of the agenda. Let us now move forward to item E. Are there any blue folder items or additional backup materials?
I do not believe you have any additional blue folder items tonight.
Okay. Let us now move forward to F, the consent calendar. And I do see that we have two items under the consent calendar. We have approved the affidavit of posting for the regular Preservation Commission meeting today, March 3rd, 2021. We also have the approval of the minutes of the regular Preservation Commission meeting that we held on September 2nd, 2020. Both of those were included in the agenda packet. So I would entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar items F1 and F2.
So moved.
Second.
Hearing a motion and a second, let us move to a roll call vote.
Commissioner McNerney,
Aye.
Commissioner Jackson,
Aye.
Commissioner Matsuno,
Aye.
Commissioner Gittens,
Aye.
Commissioner Aziz,
Aye.
and Chair Caldwell.
Aye. Seeing that we don't have any excluded consent calendar items, let us move forward with public participation on non-agenda items. Do we have any public participation on non-agenda items?
You don't have anyone signed up to, there's no one through the e-comments. We do have one attendee of the public. I believe his name is Keith. I'm not, let me find out if he's here to address non-agenda items real quick. Let's see. Keith, are you there? If you can unmute.
Yeah, no, I'm here. I don't believe I am. I'm here on the 601 Garnett.
601 Garnett? Okay, so we'll call on when we get to that item then. Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Okay, and Chair, I have no one else then.
Perfect. Now we should move to item I, ex parte communication. This is the section intended to allow any of the commissioners the opportunity to reveal any disclosure or ex parte communication about the following public hearings that we'll be listening to today. Does any commissioner have anything to report? Hearing none, we shall move to item J, public hearings. The first item that we have is J1, public hearing for consideration of an exemption declaration and certificate of appropriateness for additions and a remodel to a potential historic resource pursuant to Chapter 4. I do believe that in doing so, we are required to enter into and take the audience oath. So let me first ask, will all those individuals who wish to provide testimony with respect to public hearing items on the agenda this evening rise and take the following oath?
Yeah.
Thank you. I know it's difficult here.
I didn't see you stand up. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
I thought when you said rise, you literally rise.
Yeah, you should. Yeah.
Girl. Okay.
So let me ask each of you, do each of you swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you very much. This is the time and place to conduct a public hearing to consider these items. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
Also move.
Second.
Is there, thank you very much. A motion and a second have been made to open the public hearing. Are there any objections? Hearing none, it is so ordered. Shall we have staff begin with the staff report?
Yes. Okay, this is the certificate of appropriateness for the potential historic resource at 228 Avenue E. The project site is located on the south side of Avenue E, just west of PCH. It's zoned R1 single family residential. The lot is approximately 6,024 square feet, and it's noted in our city resource survey as a C-rated Spanish colonial house built in 1929. There were also rear additions to both the garage and the house completed in the 1950s. You can see the front elevation facing Avenue E. On the left-hand side, you can see the decorative archway in the eastern side yard. And on the right-hand side, you can see an alcove that exists behind the existing kitchen. Here's the rear elevation of the site. You can clearly see the Spanish colonial 1920s home and then the 1950s two-story addition. There will be no changes to the detached garage structure that's facing the alley. However, you can also see the Spanish colonial side and then the later addition. The owners are not requesting landmark designation at this time. However, we needed to figure out how to process their project. So we did some research last year. The original home was built in 1929 in the Spanish colonial style. The character defining features are the exterior stucco, the parapet walls with coping, mission tile accents, the recessed front porch, wood double hung windows. There's a tapered chimney that exists on the western side of the house, and then that decorative side yard archway on the eastern side of the house. Again, there are the rear additions that were built in the 1950s, and as you saw from those photos, they do not relate to the original home up front. Early connections to the site family were found in the city directories as well as the Redondo Reflex. Particularly, Coach Mel was a bit of a legend at the Redondo Union High School. So there are some articles on him through the LA Times. And then this neighborhood, the lower avenues, they were part of the original Clifton by the Sea neighborhood. So there is some potential that not only is the site eligible unto itself, but it could also be eligible as a contributing member to a future historic district. So the proposed project includes rear 1 and 2-story additions, totaling 738 square feet. They're essentially adding a rear family room with a master suite above. They'll be remodeling the existing kitchen, expanding and remodeling a bathroom, and then remodeling some portions of that rear 1950s addition. The existing exterior windows will be repaired in place wherever possible. New windows will be similar in style and design as the original home. The designer has also included a parapet wall to help screen that rear 1950s addition from the Avenue E street-facing elevation. And then mission tile roof and gable elements will be included on the additions, and of course, stucco exterior. It's a little difficult to see. This is the first floor plan. However, you can see with my cursor, this is the 1920s portion of the house, the original home. Here you have the remodeled kitchen area, extended bath here, and then that rear family room. As part of this project, they will create more connectivity between the original home and the rear addition. And then, of course, the stairway up to the second floor. This is the second floor. Here's the 1950s portion and the new master suite. Here's the proposed front elevation. So you can see this lower element here. That's the original home, the original recessed porch. You have your mission tile overhangs, and then your parapet walls above. This is the screening wall here, the parapet wall that will be created to help screen the 1950s addition that exists there now. There will also be a parapet wall on the master suite up in here. And then you've got these mission tile gable roof elements to help tie in these overhangs. Here's the eastern side elevation. Here again, you've got the original 1920s home up front. You've got an expanded bathroom space here, family room here, and master suite above. So every application that comes before the Preservation Commission has two different layers. You have the Preservation Ordinance and the Zoning Ordinance. So each application has to meet both. The Preservation Ordinance is tied to the Secretary of Interior standards. Those are the federal level standards for rehabilitation to cultural resources. Within those standards, it's discussed that additions have to be subordinate and not detract from the original home. Additions should be similar but differentiated so that future preservationists can get out here and see this is the 1920s, this is the 1950s portion, and then the 2021 portion. The distinctive features of the original home should be preserved and restored as needed. And then overall, the form and integrity of the original home needs to remain unimpaired. And all these elements are discussed further within the staff report showing how the project meets these standards. Then as it relates to the zoning ordinance, you have the single family development standards. The site does meet front, rear, and side setbacks. The maximum floor area ratio for a lot of this site is 65%, and they're proposing approximately 63%. The outdoor living space is required to be at least 800 square feet, and they are proposing over 1,100 square feet. That's essentially the rear yard. And then the overall building height will be 23 feet, whereas they're allowed to have up to 30 feet maximum height. Staff recommends that the Preservation Commission adopt the exemption declaration, approve the certificate of appropriateness for the rear additions and the remodeling of the potential historic resource located at 228 Avenue E. I know that the applicant is here, that both the designer and the owners, and they're available to answer questions as well as I. Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
So why did the applicant not want to have landmark designation?
That's an excellent question for the owners.
Yeah, so our plan is to eventually apply for landmark designation.
But one moment, Greg.
I'm
Here,
trying to
Caldwell.
find-
I apologize. I should have jumped in a little bit sooner. Commissioners will have an opportunity to answer any questions that we might have, but let us first begin with receiving public input. As we're about to begin, with those in favor, please step forward to the microphone or to your computer and give your name and address for the record, and feel free to let us know your thoughts on the project, specifically the applicant.
Chair Caldwell, if you wouldn't mind, we should probably do a vote to open the public hearing.
Oh, I apologize. I thought we had already done that. Are there any objections? And hearing none, then this would be the time for public input. So the applicant and the designer, those who are here in favor of the project, the floor is yours.
Go ahead, Greg.
Okay, so responding to the question about the landmark designation, yeah. So our initial, it's kind of long and painful history of this project, so we don't need to go into all of it. But basically, we had originally planned to do a bit more and apply for the landmark designation at the same time. We actually submitted that right before everything shut down for COVID, and everything sort of went on hold. And so we thought, rather than, and it may have been a mistake, but at this point, we'd like to continue with whatever's the most expedient, because we thought it would be less complicated to just get the exemption and the approval and then worry about the landmark status later. Because everything's been on hold now for quite some time, and we're very eager to get started with our project and get back into the house.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for answering the question. Were there any other thoughts or comments that you'd like to make in favor of the request?
Just a quick question. What was the thought process behind the extra level that you decided to build upon the historic site?
For the reason, my name's Jackie Sparunas. Do I have to state my address and all that for the record?
It would be helpful.
Okay. Jackie Sparunas, that's S as in Sam, B as in boy, AROUNIS, and I live at 804 Fay Smith in Torrance, 90503. And I'm the designer on the project. And the reason why there's a second floor element above the family room was twofold. The owners desired to have their own bedroom because the current 20s structure only has 3 bedrooms, and we used one corner to turn that into the family room. So they have 2 children, and they will be in the bedrooms in the front, and they desired to have a master suite. And so we put that in the new part of the house because that was structurally a good economic decision to have that all be clean and together. And so that was where that came from.
Thank you.
Are there any additional comments from the advocates or those in favor of the project?
I just wanted to say that I really do appreciate the additional parapet wall. I think it ties in harmoniously to the original 1920s structure, and it also it enhances the curb appeal from the street. So I really think that additional parapet wall was a good addition.
Thank you.
Stacy, I know it was rated as a C. Did you think that was a high enough rating, or should it have been rated higher?
I do wonder if they gave it a C rating because of the rear 1950s additions, that alterations had taken place at the site that were inappropriate, right? It wasn't a perfectly pure Spanish colonial home, but these alterations could certainly increase the rating of the site.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I appreciate too the additions to the levels above the lower level, maintaining the historical features of what the home was prior to these recent additions.
Thank you.
I have one question. Again, like all the other commissioners, I like the fact that you are trying to tie in the addition into the original structure. But in those federal guidelines, there was also the need to sort of distinguish the addition from the original 1920s home. A lot of times that has to do with a different kind of siding or something like that. In this case, what have you done to sort of make that distinction?
So the windows, primarily, the windows are going to be a little bit different because the historic house, the thicknesses of the sill projection, and the sill horns are unique to that age of home where a person certainly could take the time and energy in having each window handmade, but we're electing to use a Colby product that we can order it with sill projections and horns and try to have the stucco wrap into the jamb in a historic manner. But of course, that'll be a different texture of a window and slightly different dimensions. Also, what I've done with the gabled roof areas is have the rafter tails be exposed and stained with little corbel details. And the original front of the house has a stuccoed eave for the covered porch. So I'm adding some of the typical Spanish colonial details that you would see in many of the homes of that era and integrating the wood texture in. So that is unique in compared to the original structure. Let's see. I'm replicating the parapet wall detail to the original. So that's kind of that. But it's mostly the wood texture. The stucco is the stucco, and we're going to try to match the original roof onto the addition as much as possible. Of course, the 20s roof has some age to it, so it's not perfect. Over time, elements will be exposed to it, so it'll age. The rear patio, if we look at the east side yard elevation and also the rear elevation shows a covered porch area. We have a wood column, and the column is stained, and we have some corbel details there. So that's a little bit slightly different than the covered porches now. But other than that, I'm trying to match all the detailing as close as I possibly can, understanding that it has to have some little variation. It can't be exact so that we can meet the federal standard.
Thank you.
Yes.
Are there any additional comments for those in favor? Hearing none. Are there any people here today that are here to oppose this item? Close the public participation.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Hearing a first and a second, are there any objections? Hearing none, it is so ordered. Does the commission have any questions or comments related to this item?
Stacy, I just, you mentioned that you thought that these changes would probably enhance its rating. Could you elaborate on that just a little bit?
Sure. Now, it's important for us to keep in mind that the rating, the ABCD rating that was the original survey, was a way for the preservation consultants to, when they were doing the windshield survey, to help identify what are the best examples of these different styles of architecture. A and B being the best, C and D being less so. Usually the C and D properties, they have interesting elements to their architectural styles, but they are best served as contributing members to historic districts. In this case, because of the ties between the Seifert family and all of the newspaper articles about Coach Mel Seifert, on top of the Spanish colonial character-defining features, we feel this is still a strong site for eligibility. Is the C rated exactly correct? It's probably more of a B rated property, in my opinion. C and D rated properties tend to be like our California bungalows. They were built in the time, but there are no special features to them, right? They're very simple beach cottages. In this case, we do have some Spanish colonial elements that are very interesting.
Thank you.
Are there any additional comments or questions? Well, let me just comment. I really do appreciate it when I see residents really work with the city to maintain kind of the look and character of the community. It's great to see homeowners that don't quickly tear down a building in hope of building a new structure, but are working with the existing infrastructure and adding to the character of the home. So I'm very excited to hear and see that as well. So with no additional comments, is there a motion to approve staff's recommendation?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
With a motion and a second, let us move to a roll call vote on item J1.
Commissioner McNerney,
Aye.
Commissioner Jackson,
Aye.
Commissioner Matsuno,
Aye.
Commissioner Gittens,
Aye.
Commissioner Aziz,
Aye.
Chair Caldwell.
Aye. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you guys for the time you spend to do this for the public. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we'll now move on to item J2. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second have been made to open the public hearing. Are there any objections? Hearing none, it is so ordered, and we shall have staff's report on this item.
Yes, thank you, Chair Caldwell. I'm going to share my screen here. And let's see. It looks like it skipped ahead there. Yeah. So tonight's agenda item here is the certificate of appropriateness for an alteration to the exterior of a landmark building. The building is located at 601 Garnett. There are a couple of just minor, I guess what we would say almost minor additions, but they are a little bit complicated in this case. Now, if you recall, this structure was considered by the Preservation Commission in 2019 and granted landmark status. It is a B-rated historic structure. It was originally built as a mixed-use type of building with stores on the ground level and apartments above. It was built in 1926 and it has a B rating. The mixed-use building's character-defining features are the Spanish eclectic architectural style and the storefront use at the corner. The The lot is zoned for residential use now, so it is a non-conforming use and structure. In terms, the structure itself is non-conforming in terms of parking and setbacks, and the setbacks actually come into play, which I'll show you, which was described in the staff report, but I'll show you here as we move along. Let's go this. Oops. Skipping ahead too far. So the applicant's intention is to legalize or permit the storefront use for residential. It has been used for residential for some time now, but it was done without city-issued permits. So now the applicant or the owner has come forward and looking to get this legalized so that the property is no longer considered non-conforming in terms of use, and sometimes it's easier to get insurance and those types of things for these types of buildings. So the applicant is going to looking to do some demolition to the lower level to where the storefront used to be, but maintaining the character defining features, which is the storefront facade on the south side. Because of the interior changes, you could see on the right here, and I'm going to kind of show them with my cursor, there's going to be some changes to these windows. And these are necessary because these are bedroom windows. And in order to use these as bedroom windows, you have to have egress windows, which are much larger in size, so that if something were to happen, people can get out of it. So they're trying to comply with the building and fire codes. The entire space is about 1,440 square feet in size. So the issue one of the issues that we came across with the setbacks is that typically, for our residentially zoned properties, the side yard setbacks and front setbacks are 5 feet on the side and 15 at the front. But because this was originally a commercial building, a mixed use building, it was basically built at the property line. And upon investigation with a survey, the applicant went ahead and informed us that, yes, the building actually slightly crosses over the property lines. And here you can see where on the west facade, here by the stairs, it encroaches slightly into the right of way, and then about 5 inches here. And then at the bottom here, the bottom corner, it encroaches both ways, about 1 inch to the west and about 2 inches to the south. So because of that, the engineering division is going to require an encroachment permit and issuance of permits, and they'll be inspecting the work because it is technically in the right of way. There's insurance requirements that come with that. The applicant has talked to the engineering division about this, and have kind of worked out the formalities of how that's going to take place. Now the purview of the commission here is these windows that are proposed. The windows here at the bottom, this is the existing elevation. You could see the windows. It's the two windows over here on the left side, the northernmost windows that would be changed. And those are already altered. And as you can see from this photograph, there's a vent that's coming through the window, and there's an air conditioning unit in the other. These windows are originally, I think there was hopper type windows that open inward, but because of these alterations, it doesn't appear that those are functioning windows anymore. This window still seems to be original. It just has a screen in front of it, but it looks like it is operable and it's still in its original condition. Lastly, the storefront window. This also has a vent in it, which will have to be restored and repaired. So these are the windows here. The windows are going to be the windows that are proposed to be in place are going to be larger than the original windows, and they'll be differentiated in the type of windows that are the building materials that they use. You'll be able to distinguish the originals from the new windows upon closer inspection. And again, these are pictures of the the windows, those close-up pictures of what they look like now, and where they've been altered and changed. And one of the other things that the applicant is looking to revise is to replace these storefront windows at the top here, these transom windows, with operable windows for ventilation. So those will likely be also either awning or hopper type windows. And we can ask the applicant for specifically what is the intention there. And so this is the picture of the existing building and its current condition. There has been some repairs to the garage doors. So there has been some of that work that was required as part of the granting of the landmark status. So as the project moves forward, the owner is doing some of those things that are required to keep the building up and bring it back to its kind of original state. And this is a rendering that was provided by the architect's group, and of what the intention is for the building. As you can tell here, all of the windows garage doors and doors would be all painted in a uniform color to give it a kind of contemporary look, and the entire building would be painted in this off-white color. With that, staff is recommending, that the commission find that the project is exempt from CEQA and adopt the environmental exemption, and approve the certificate of appropriateness for the exterior alterations to the Drobat's grocery store, subject to conditions of approval. And I know that the applicant and owner are on the panel here and can answer questions from the commission.
Thank you very much for the very thorough report. Now is the time to receive public input. Shall the applicant come forward, as well as those in favor, please be ready to testify. So if the applicant would like to discuss the request.
Yeah, sure. It's Steve Edwards here. I'm the owner. Can you hear me at all?
Yeah.
We can.
Oh, good. Thank you, Antonio, for the great report. And Chris, our architect, might speak a little bit as well. But just wanted to talk about the intent of the project briefly. As Antonio mentioned, it's currently used and rented as an apartment space and has been occupied as such for years prior to our ownership, and it's currently occupied right now. The first reason why we're in front of you is to get these windows on the lower level approved so we can bring the space up to code and safety requirements as was mentioned. The goal is to get this approved, and then we're going to work with the tenant in that lower space and the tenants in the building on timing and how we go about doing these improvements. But the first order of business was to see if it's appropriate and see if we can do something like this. And then secondly, we want to repaint and bring the building up to a more contemporary but historic look. And I think the color scheme that we came up with is a more attractive and uniform look, and actually really calls attention to the building and will make it a little more iconic and pay homage to the history that it represents. And then lastly, making that space down below permitted and legal is something that I think is a good long-term thing for the property in the city. Mixed use there really isn't appropriate in that residential neighborhood, and adding more housing where we can is much needed these days. And that's it for me.
Did your architect, or designer have any additional comments?
Hi, I'm Chris Stage. I'm the architect, and I think Antonio and Steve both pretty much summed it up. It's in the grand scheme of things, it's relatively minor modifications to the historic building to adapt it to the use that it currently is being used for. So we're, like Antonio said, we're keeping the new windows appropriately styled for this historic building, and yet the detailing will differentiate them. So sticking with Secretary of the Interior standards, we feel the moves are appropriate.
Chris,
Thank you.
sorry, I was just hoping, Chris, would you mind addressing the type of window that'll be used for ventilation purposes on the storefront?
Yeah, so those would be wood windows, again, similar to what's existing. There'll be awning windows, so they could be opened to provide the required ventilation per building and safety requirements.
So the windows will open outward?
That's right. They are recessed into the facade, so even though they'll open outward, they won't open into the right-of-way.
The overall configuration remains the same though, with the three smaller panels up at the top. And
Yeah,
panel.
exactly. So it'll still have the mullions that align with the existing.
Okay.
I'm curious, how long ago was this landmarked? It looks really familiar.
We just did this.
We just did this, yeah.
Yeah, we did this February of 2019.
2019, yeah.
Yeah, it took a while because the application was actually in, I want to say, gosh, October, November of 2018, but we were having a little bit of issues with some quorum, and then finally we got in front of the commission, but we were able to landmark it February of 2019. So in the somewhat recent past. And one of the items that I know we had called out originally on this building is that the wrought iron sconces, that those should all be replaced, and we hope that the applicant can do that once they do the exterior renovations. 2 of the sconces remain. 2 of them haven't been replaced with the appropriate type of sconces. There's some providers for more appropriate materials, and those are going to be difficult to find exact matches. But if they were to find 4 that were all the same, that would be great.
I have one other question. The 2 of the windows that are going to be replaced had some sort of vent. One of them looked like a kitchen vent. How are you going to do the vent? Do you have to, perforate the wall somewhere else to do that, or?
Yeah, actually, one of the vents was a laundry vent. So we will need to make a small perforation for the laundry vent. There are vents now that are obviously more attractive and less obtrusive than what's there. So it'll be a minor vent. The other, it was I think a window air conditioning unit, which we won't have.
With the windows that were required to be updated for permitting, just wanted to know, were there any additional window options in addition to what was necessary for permitting thought about when making the decision to permit, or was it just to get to the permit that you needed?
Yeah, the driving factor, I guess, was the code required life safety issues. That's what's really driving the change in windows. Beyond that, we looked at the type of windows that are used on the building and matched those as closely as we could so that we're not creating something that really stands out or detracts from the rest of the structure.
And Chris, will the new windows be recessed from the exterior like the existing windows are because of the thickness of the exterior wall? Will they also have the same kind of setback as the other windows that are there?
Yeah, they will. it's a little more tricky construction wise, but it's not a huge thing, the framing just has to be set back to accept those new windows. And then the waterproofing, it wraps in. So they will be set back exactly the same distance as the existing.
Okay.
Chris, can you remind me, you provided a detail for that in the plans, correct?
Yeah, we provided the cut sheets through the proposed windows.
And a detail for the framing as well?
Yeah. Yep.
Thank you.
Sure.
Are there any additional comments for those in favor of this project?
I have just one other comment, and that is, as a neighbor that walks in that area quite frequently, the encroachment issue is definitely, it's not an issue for pedestrians in that area. So it seems very appropriate to grant that certificate.
I'm glad to hear that, because that was something that was kind of on my mind, as how we deal.
Yeah, commissioners, I do have to admit that kind of behind the scenes, I did do quite a bit of lobbying with the engineering division to try and find a solution to this. The ultimate solution was to go ahead and grant the encroachment permit. The engineering division is reluctant to grant those, but I said, well, what if you grant an annual encroachment permit, and if necessary, have a fee for inspections to make sure that everything is still in proper order, so that it's not falling apart or anything like that. They agreed. It really matches up well with our Mills Act contract, which also requires inspections, periodic inspections. So I thought that was a great solution, and it serves both our purposes, both the community development department's purposes and the public works department purposes as well. So there's insurance requirements and everything else that come along with that, but it was a better option than trying to shave an inch off the building here, 2 inches, 3 inches off the building there. I said, no, that's not the intention here. We want to keep everything in place. We don't want to alter the building in any way, the exterior. I know, I said, I recognize this is a secondary elevation, but it's still an elevation that's visible from the public right away. We want to keep it in place.
Can I ask a question? This is mostly, I should be more familiar with exactly where this is, and I can't right now put it in my mind, but it's mostly a residential area, but this was a mixed-use building originally. And so as it had different setback restrictions than a residential. What is the property that is adjacent to these property lines?
They're both residential properties. One actually was another property that was that Stacy brought to the commission years back.
Okay.
124 South Guadalupe.
Yeah.
Correct. And that's also a historic building with a couple of condos that were built behind it. The garage is at the front. There's some steep topography, as you can imagine, just like this property. And then next to it is also on the other side, on the Garnett Street side, we also have a pretty remarkable structure, a craftsman building, and which was also of the time period of this building in the 1920s. So altogether, yes, these buildings kind of start forming a small little mini district, you could say. But there are other more contemporary buildings in the surrounding area, which have developed over time.
I presume those fees would be annual that you spoke about in the encroachment kind of.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I know. I understand. It's it's kind of conflicting because from the applicant's perspective, the city is kind of taking with a fee with one hand and giving something back with a tax break with the other hand. So I know it's kind of contradictory, but it was the best solution that we were able to come to with the Public Works Department.
Are there any additional comments in favor?
Can you hear me? My name is Keith Rosansky.
Keith raised his hand, yeah.
Yes. Keith?
Yeah, I'm actually the tenant in 601. So right now, this was more out of curiosity that I joined tonight because I didn't know anything about the project until I saw the signs go up. Very quickly, I just want to say my family and I have lived in that unit for 7 years, and we absolutely love that building and take care of it as best as we can as tenants. So I think the plans that they show, it looks beautiful. I can answer two questions really quickly that were asked earlier. Those two vent pipes that you see on the side, as of yesterday, they are officially non-functional. One was a laundry exhaust that was non-functional since we moved in. The existing laundry exhaust is near ground level, so that one was never functional. Yesterday, they removed the old water tanks or hot water heaters for our unit and the unit upstairs. The other window, that pipe coming out of it, was for the exhaust for the old water heaters. There's now a tankless water heater, and so that is non-functional, and all that can be just removed. It's just not necessary anymore. So to answer those questions, they're completely non-functional, both of those things. And then I can't say as the tenant whether I'm for or against. I can't imagine they can pull this off without major disruption. Like those windows happen to be in front of the shower and bathroom, right? So, but whatever, it is what it is. They own the building, where the tenants will deal with whatever. But so I just said I wasn't for or against. I just wanted to say I'm here out of curiosity, and I could also answer some of the questions you guys had.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any last additional comments for those in favor? Hearing none, are there any people here in opposition to this request?
And Chair Caldwell, if I may, I just want to confirm there are no e-comments that have come in on this item either.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Well, hearing no opposition, is there a motion to close the public participation?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second to close the public participation. Are there any objections? Hearing none, it is so ordered. Does the commission have any questions or comments? Hearing none, I guess I have a question and maybe a comment. My question to staff is that obviously when the area was rezoned to residential and the building becomes non-conforming, is there any sort of exception that the city allows for historic buildings or for to be designated historic buildings?
So the typically with buildings, when the zoning changes and the building becomes a legal non-conforming use, it can continue as is. As long as there's not a 2-year break between the occupancy of the, let's say the store. If the store had continued operating the store, it could continue like that forever. Mm-hmm. But once there's a 2-year break, it has to go back to the planning commission to reestablish that type of use or add any other use that's not conforming to the district. Those types of things, they kind of grandfathered in, like they say. Mm-hmm. And that's with any non-conforming use or structure.
Okay. And then I guess my only other comment, it really isn't a question, is I guess I am concerned about tenants being in a building that could potentially have serious issues related to ventilation or anything like that. I do want to focus in on the jurisdiction or the duties of the Preservation Commission today, but I do hope that the city looks at that. It sounds as though Keith Rosansky very much loves living there, and I'm happy that he does, but sometimes there could be some serious issues there. And so I hope that the city is trying to remedy that as quickly as possible. But today, obviously, I want to focus on the Preservation Commission.
Absolutely. That was part of the intention of bringing this quickly to the Preservation Commission, is to try and get these issues resolved. It took quite a while to actually hammer out the compromise with the Public Works Department, but we've been working together with the Building Division staff to try and get all of these issues addressed and have this project move forward so they can have the unit legalized and occupied in a safe manner. Absolutely.
I have one last question, if I may.
Yes.
When we approved the landmark status, were there photos in the file of the store, like historic photos of the store when it was operating?
No, we actually didn't have the photos of the store. We don't have any of those records.
Okay.
But by the time that it came to the commission, they had been occupied as a residence for some years.
Yeah.
I asked earlier about it because I did recognize it. And I guess my only question would be that with any landmark designation, there's certain, plans or promises to do certain things. And did you affirm that the things that were said that were going to be done were done and completed?
Yes, Commissioner Jackson, as I mentioned, there has been some progress specifically with restoration of some of the garage doors and repairs. They have the original kind of carriage house, barn type doors put in. Those are all new. They had a sectional door or a single door that they had replaced, which was inappropriate. That's now taken care of. So there is progress. They are moving forward. Like, as I mentioned, the sconces that we had asked to be restored or rehabbed or replaced, I should say replaced, those haven't been done. But I imagine that once they do, they paint the entire building and do that work, that's the appropriate time to do that.
And there are no issues with the painting and the upgrades to the building in the future, interfering with any of the historical elements that were previously there prior to, correct, Antonio?
That's correct. It's just paint. But one of the things that I did talk to the applicant about was to consider the paint scheme and using potentially the same color or different or a third color on the friezes and the parapet, the top of the decorative parapet. So that's something that I did ask about, and but they want to go with one more cleaner type look. So I thought it might be nice to have those kind of indentations in the roof structure kind of called out or highlighted. But really that's it's kind of a lesser matter. They have been painted a different color in the past, and that's kind of the reason why I had asked about that.
Antonio, I have one more question. And, obviously I want to commend the property owner for, bringing it up to code. So this question is not so much focused on him, but rather that when you have a situation where a property has been out of code, it's then brought to your attention and they bring it up to code. Are there any penalties or fines or things that are associated with it having not been up to code? And again, this isn't so much specifically focused for him, but in general, because I'm sure that there are, many other properties that are out of code.
Yes, the building division does charge twice the plan check fees, so the permit fees are doubled for the work that is going to have to be plan checked to legalize it. to validate it. So that does happen. The other remedy for properties that are either construction that's taken place without permits or occupied without the standard approvals is through code enforcement action. And typically we do that on a complaint basis. And then the property owners are notified, and there's a whole process or procedure for that as well. But yeah, there are penalties that are imposed.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any additional comments or questions? Are there any final comments from staff?
Nope.
Hearing none, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve, or is there a motion and a second to approve the staff recommendation?
So moved.
Second.
Let us move to a roll call vote.
Commissioner McNerney,
Aye.
Commissioner Jackson,
Aye.
Commissioner Matsuno,
Aye.
Commissioner Gittens,
Aye.
Commissioner Aziz,
Aye.
Chair Caldwell.
Aye. Congratulations. And let us now move to our final specific action item, J3. And
I do have a presentation. Let me switch over to that and share my screen here.
should we first enter into a open public hearing?
We can either do that, or we can have where we have the audience take the oath.
Oh, did they not already do that? Let us.
I don't recall if the applicants for this one took the oath.
Okay. Well, all those individuals who wish to provide testimony with respect to this item, please stand and take this oath. Do each of you swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Yes.
Excellent. Then this is the time and place to conduct a public hearing to consider item J3. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
Also move.
Second.
Motion and a second have been made to open the public hearing. Are there any objections? Hearing none, staff, please proceed with your presentation.
Thank you, Chair Caldwell. So this last item we have tonight here, this last public hearing item, is actually twofold. The applicant is requesting that the Preservation Commission grant local landmark status as well as a certificate of appropriateness to allow the renovation and restoration of this multi-family structure, as well as removal of some inappropriate alterations and some accessory structures at the rear of the building. Per the city's preservation ordinance, a certificate of appropriateness is required for modifications and alterations to a designated landmark or a potential historic resource. The intent of requiring the certificate of appropriateness, again, is to maintain the integrity and character of the resource. The applicant has provided plans as well as a document outlining the evaluating the structure for historic purposes. And the plans, the evaluation does take into consideration the scope of work for the potential resource and has deemed it compatible architecturally speaking and historically speaking. So first of all, with the landmark criteria, in order for the property to be eligible for local landmark status or for landmark status, it needs to meet one of 5 criteria. And this property is eligible under the first criteria as an example of residential development early in the city's history. The Historic Resources Assessment Report states and staff agrees that this residential building is a rare example of development during the transformational period in Redondo Beach history. Although the residence has been altered since its initial construction, the character-defining features still convey its association with early 20th century residential development in Redondo Beach. So it still reflects that part of the specific kind of goings-on of the time period for the city, especially in this area, which was the wharf and which was a very dynamic kind of industrial area. So the site was constructed originally in 1907 as a two-story single-family house. It coincided with an early boom, a building boom that was spurred after Henry Huntington's purchase of the interest in the Redondo Beach Improvement Company and the Los Angeles and Redondo Railway. So people understood that there was a lot of development that was going to take place. It put Redondo Beach back on the map as far as a place to go live. And so this early boom was taking place. There was some speculation, some real estate speculation that was occurring. And so this house was built. And after a short period of activity, the house was actually converted to a boarding house. So it seems that by somewhere between let's say 1910 and 1921, it was a boarding house, and there was some unspecified repairs in 1921. And likely that's when the building itself was converted to 3 apartments. And so there was also some other construction activity that was taking place. There was some garages that were built in the back. At that point, the report identifies that the garages were likely accessed from Broadway. The Sanborn maps kind of show that. So the Sanborn fire insurance maps. And then, some of the building department records indicate that by 1972, the building had been converted to a 4-unit building. So by that time, there was an additional unit that was added. But the permit history is questionable as to some of the other additions that came afterwards. The site now is zoned as low-density multifamily residential. It's in the coastal area. And the structure itself is considered non-conforming. And that's primarily because one is the setbacks aren't correct or aren't to the standards to today's standards. And there's no way to access the parking, the garages. There's no way to access the back. There was a series of occupants and owners over time with a variety of different occupations. There was musicians, there was teachers that lived there, there was a police officer, bakers, bartenders. So all kinds of different people lived there throughout the times. When we looked through the history, I couldn't find anyone necessarily that was notable in the city's history, but it just, in fact, that, there was a variety of, people that lived there all kind of together over time, especially in the early 20s. The architectural style in the 86 survey, the city survey, calls it out as colonial revival, but really it's more of a residential vernacular structure. It doesn't have the colonial revival type details that you see like in the Sweetser House, for example. But it's kind of more asymmetrical. There's some of the character defining features of that recessed porch. There's this unique design to the roof. It's the jerkin head roof with the hip dormers. It has some exposed and shaped eaves, the rafter tails, which are pretty interesting. And there's the other thing that's kind of defining about this is there are some fixed windows and some double hung windows from the original house. At some point, it looks like there's some cement plaster that covers the original wood siding, and it's unclear when that took place, when that was done. But that's the state that it's in today. And in some cases, we had one situation where the original cladding was actually stucco, and they had put wood over it. So this is actually the reverse, which is probably more common. Especially being near the sea, with the deterioration of the structures, the woods, over time, people will, kind of use materials that tend to last longer. So that's kind of the current state. These are some depictions, some pictures of the building that were included in the report. I am not including all the pictures that were submitted as part of the application. You have the ability to peruse those on your as part of the staff report. But let me just say that you can kind of tell the property is not in the most pristine condition. So the certificate of appropriateness, there's, the commission has to determine that the work is conforming to the prescriptive standards. Stacy talked about the federal standards for rehab. There's 10 standards, and it has to comply with those. The commission has to find that the character defining features are not going to be adversely affected or removed, and that it retains the essential elements. For the case of new construction where a landmark property is, and this is kind of the second step, if the commission decides to go ahead and grant this property landmark status, that any additions to the building are going to be compatible with the exterior appearance of the designated resource. So that's kind of the purview of the commission when it looks at granting a certificate of appropriateness. And typically for historic resources, anything that's visible from the public right-of-way that the applicant is looking to change requires the issuance of a certificate of appropriateness. Again, there are some structures that were built after the original building, which are severely deteriorated in the back, some accessory structures, and those would be removed. But we really don't consider those as character defining features of the property. So the Secretary of Interior standards for rehab, there are 10 different standards. I've highlighted the 3 most relevant standards here. These were in the staff report as well, and they're in the resolution. And what these talk about is that the historic character of the property will be retained and preserved, and that the removal of distinctive materials or alteration of features, spaces, or relationships of the characterize the property will be avoided. So that, the preservation plan, the scope of work that the applicant is proposing, they're keeping the roof form, the open eaves, the exposed shaped rafter tails, all of that will remain and restored. The central hip dormer, which is a key piece of the roof structure, will be kept in place. The other kind of character defining feature was that recessed porch entry with the concrete stairs and the square posts. That's all going to remain. What will be removed is going to be the non-historic additions to the south and the east facades. And there's a picture that follows that. The other criteria is criteria number 6, and that's that the features that are in bad shape, they're going to be repaired rather than replaced. But if they need to be replaced, the new feature will match the old in the design and materials. And so they're looking to do that as well. With the removal of the addition on the south, that'll probably expose some of the original materials, and anything that will need to be replaced, any windows that will need to be replaced are anticipated to be replaced with wood double hung windows. And the applicant has provided a detail for the type of window that will be used as well, and that's in the staff report materials and the application materials. And these are the two pictures of the two facades with two additions that were added that are going to be removed. On the left here is the addition on the side. This was an entryway that was added to the building. It's right in the setback area, so this will be removed. This will help with providing access to the rear because they are anticipating to demolish this part of this addition to the rear of the structure and create something that's more appropriate in the back here. Again, you can kind of get an idea of the condition of the property by some of the pictures and what it looks like on the outside. I imagine that it's not any better on the inside. So these are undertaking a rehab project like this is going to be a very time consuming construction project that's going to involve a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, I'm sure. So anyhow, this shows the site plan that shows the two accessory structures. These were like garages. It looks like one of the structures was kind of replaced with a shed. There's a bunch of other things back here, but these two would be removed, as well as the addition that was here on the back and on the east side of the facade and on the south side of the facade. And you can see where the stairs are here into the entrance. The floor plan shows the demolition and actually the walls are going to be taken down inside to create a more functional floor plan. And then on this side, you can see the addition to the rear on the first floor. And this is the demo on the second floor, the interior demo, reworking the inside, and then the addition on the back here with the entryway, coming up the stairs, leading to, these are going to be 2 units at the top here. And then this shows the roof. This is, the demo of the roof that's part of the addition, and then how it would be recreated back here. These are the elevations. Again, the distinctive roof form is kept in place. That's the main reason that you want to consider this is that this is a character defining feature to the building. It's visible from the public right of way, and it'll be rehab and restored if necessary. And with the and then the demolition, of course, on the south and east elevation, and then the reconstruction of an addition on the back here. This rear portion is inset from the original building and will not be visible, will likely not be visible from the public right of way. So it's kind of secondary to the main structure. It kind of doesn't take away from the prominence of the original building. And this is the other elevations. This is the north elevation and the rear elevation that shows the demo, the reconstruction for the addition in the back here.
Can you show us the plot, the lot?
Sure.
Again, the position of the buildings and the additions on the lot.
Yes. So
okay.
So these are this is the site plan, the demo plan here, and then the addition you see is set in from the side here.
Yeah, I see that.
Okay.
And also here. So it's tapered in.
Mm-hmm.
You'll be able to see, the new portion likely by the exterior cladding. And that was one of the questions that you had for another case. But they're going to try and match the cement plaster. It's probably unlikely because of the time. The materials are going to be different. but you'll see that the join here, where that inside corner, it likely will be, the materials will be slightly different. And again, it's recessed inward so that, there's a clean distinction between the old and the new. So it's differentiated. And this is the top portion. Again, it's tapered in and connected to the original building here. Same with the roof.
Mm-hmm.
You don't get the sense from these views, from these two-dimensional views of that, but in 3D on plan view, it's more evident. And with this, the shingles will be this kind of dark colored, kind of gray. They're looking to paint the building also in off-white with some darker accents. And they're looking to use wood framed windows for replacements, and that are similar and compatible with the original windows for the home. So with that, staff is recommending that the commission adopt the resolution finding that the project is exempt from CEQA and approve the environmental exemption and approve the landmark designation, as well as the certificate of appropriateness for these exterior modifications, subject to conditions of approval. And,
Thank you for the excellent staff report.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I know that the applicant is on the, we have the applicant's representatives, the owners, as well as a representative from HRG who did the historic resources evaluation. And they're available, I'm sure, to answer any questions that the commission may have.
Excellent. Now is the time to receive public input. So with those in favor and requesting this action, please step forward and let us know a little bit about your project.
Is this my turn to go, or is this?
Yes, Dan.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Dan Lewin. My partner Shane Young is on the call as well. We purchased this property from an agent, John Kapnick, at the end of last year, and we've gotten to work closely with Antonio on it, and it's been a good process. It's neat, there's some beautiful newer condo house structures kind of surrounding this whole thing, and they're beautiful, but it's kind of neat when we realized that this project was going to involve restoring and saving this structure, especially with sort of such a prominent location right into, leading down into the pier. Shane and I both lived in Redondo Beach for a time up on Sierra Vista Drive when we were younger and rooming together before our wife days. So we've gotten to know the area, and I think it's a real neat pocket of the world. And so it's cool to be a part of restoring, what I think is a unique structure, but also, able to provide more housing, which is ultimately what is Shane's and my passion. But it's cool to be able to preserve this and sort of get involved with a pretty unique project. So yeah, happy to answer any questions or anything like that.
Did anybody have any additional questions?
So do you, I take it that you're not planning to live there?
No, yeah, it's an investment for rental.
Can you elaborate on that? Is it going to be multiple units?
4 units.
Right, Commissioner Jackson, there's 4 units there now, and they're looking to keep the 4 units just to create more functional floor plans for each of the units.
Yeah, I'm familiar with where it's at, so it is a nice property.
We think so too.
I'll just say that when I when I saw the agenda packet and my first glance was the address and I knew immediately what it was. My fear was that it was a request for demolition because I always looked at that house and just thought, oh my God, one of these days someone's going to come and tear it down. I was so happy to see instead that it was this request for the landmark. Very pleased about that. One question I had was just that I couldn't tell from the site plan how much open space there is at the back of the property.
I don't have a number. The whole lot is 6,000 square feet, I think a little over 6,000, and we're extending to about halfway back.
Okay, so yeah, that's nice that there's also some open space left there too.
Mm-hmm. One question I had was that, this is significant, looks like a significant amount of blight, with the property when it comes to kind of historically where it's been, throughout the years. And thank you, Antonio, for the historical context. But what do you think, is a realistic time frame for its rehabilitation, especially when it comes to the rear portion of the property and kind of building out that wooden area that kind of lives at the top of the frame there? It just seems a little unsafe.
Yeah, it's interesting. That's a good question. Shane and I are just getting done renovating a 5-unit property in downtown Long Beach. It is actually kind of reminds me of this one, and we're about coming up on a year in that project and reflecting that it probably would have been easier if we had bought a land site and done a new development, because by the time we have to work it all, get the existing and all that, we thought we were getting a good deal because we were buying a fixer-upper for land price, but it turns out that actually that's in some ways more work. So it's going to be a significant project without a doubt, but I think probably we're gearing up for probably about a year worth of work on it for once we're fully approved and able to start. But we're funded to do that and prepared to do it.
I know you have 2 other people here. I don't know if they have anything to add as well. Hearing none.
My name
yes.
is Jessica Risney, so I'm the architect. And I think the only thing that I would have to add is just that we have a great team. John Kelly's been working really close with Christine on the historic aspect, and then really feeling like it's been a partnership with Stacy and Antonio. And so I feel really confident about bringing this project to fruition. So just compliments to staff for their availability and guidance, really, and then same with Christine. So it made my job super easy to just put it down on paper. So so that's all I have to add, and happy to answer any specific questions though.
When do you, if it's approved, when do you plan to get started on it?
We plan to start immediately once we have planning and building and safety approval to do so.
Are there any additional questions? Hearing none, has anybody else come forward to speak in support of this project? Hearing none, are there any people here today to speak in opposition to this item? Hearing none.
Lena, there's no one here to speak on this item, right?
No, Antonio, and Chair Caldwell, there's no one to speak on this item, nor are there any e-comments on this item.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, then, is there a motion to close public participation?
So moved.
Second.
Any objections? Hearing none, it is so ordered. Does the commission have any final questions or comments?
I'd like
Hearing
to
none.
done.
Oh, yes. I'm sorry, what was that?
I said I'd really like to see the property when it's completed.
Happy to show it to you. Happy to show it to anybody.
I mean, it's really a cool property.
Isn't it?
I
Yeah.
do have a question, and this might not be related, but about the parking standard. I noticed that the current property does not have a parking standard, and you mentioned that there are 4 units. I know that that tends to be more of a densely packed area in terms of parking in the surrounding neighborhood. So I'm curious to know if that was noted in the plans of any portion in consideration.
And is this something that staff can answer, or would we need to reopen the public participation portion?
No, I think we can, Chair Caldwell, we can answer that question. There is a provision, thank you for the question, Commissioner Aziz. There is a provision in the zoning code that allows for additions to non-conforming structures, but the community development director needs to make a finding that there's no way to actually provide the parking without removing a portion of the existing structure. And this is very critical in this situation because even with the removal of the inappropriate alterations, there still is no way to access the rear of the property for parking. So there's a specific exemption or kind of almost like a modification or variance process that is subject to administrative approval. And that's a conversation that we have to have with the applicant afterwards. So that we're actually planning on having that conversation and outlaying the procedure for that, and then moving forward with the project. But there is a specific exemption in the code for that, and it's applicable in this case. The majority of the times that we apply it, it's in the R1A area, the tall and skinnies, where you have only single car garages, or in the TRW tract homes. A lot of those homes only have single car garages, and there's no way to get a second space without having to demolish the part of the structure. So that's why that was put into the code. And again, it's at the discretion of the community development director. And we just have to make the finding that there's no way to actually get that second parking space without demolishing the structure. Otherwise, they'd have to do a modification permit, which is a different process as well. And in that case, sometimes there is the ability to, there's a whole, I don't want to get into that. That's not what we're talking about tonight, but there's a whole process for that as well.
Sure. Thank you for answering that. Thank you.
I will also add to that. Antonio and I have already met with the community development director about this project, and she's in support of moving forward. So if it's approved by the Preservation Commission tonight, we will actually formally write that determination in relationship to the parking.
All right. Are there any additional questions or comments from the commission? Hearing none, are there any final comments from staff?
That covers it, Chair. Thank you.
All right. Is there a motion to approve the staff recommendation?
I'll make that motion.
I'll
Do
second.
we have a second? Hearing a motion and a second, we shall now move to a roll call vote.
Commissioner McNerney,
Aye.
Commissioner Jackson,
Aye.
Commissioner Matsuno,
Aye.
Commissioner Gittens,
Aye.
Commissioner Aziz,
Aye.
Chair Caldwell.
Aye. Well, thank you all very much. We were able to move through that, I think, fairly quickly, as well as hear all the information. So thank you very much to staff for your excellent reports. We shall now move to agenda item K, items continued from previous agendas. And I do not believe there are any, but perhaps staff could remind me.
There are no previous agenda items.
And now items for discussion prior to action. At today's commission meeting, we will elect or hold our election of officers. As part of that process, I would like to say that I've enjoyed serving as the chair, I think now for the past year and a half. It has been a great honor to work on behalf of the city, and obviously I think we're all here with a common cause to ensure the preservation of not just historic but beautiful buildings throughout Redondo Beach. So I would like to say thank you. But now we would entertain any nominations to elect a chair or vice chair.
I'll nominate Commissioner Caldwell.
I will accept.
Yeah, I second that.
Thank you very much. Are there any nominations for vice chair?
All right, Jeff, I'm nominating you.
Okay, I'll accept.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Commissioner Masuno. And with that, I do believe we have a motion for myself to continue to serve as chair, as well as Commissioner Masuno to serve as vice chair. Is there a second?
Second.
Shall we have a roll call vote?
Sure. Commissioner McNerney,
Aye.
Commissioner Jackson,
Aye.
Commissioner Matsuno,
Aye.
Commissioner Gittens,
Aye.
Commissioner Aziz,
Aye.
and Chair Caldwell.
Aye.
Aye, yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you. Yeah. Thank you all very much. We are rounding third here. We're almost done. We are at item M. Are there any items from staff?
You know, we don't have the subcommittees listed here. Most of them have not been active, but we do have the minor alterations subcommittee. So we need to find out if Commissioner McNerney and Vice Chair Matsuno would like to continue on the subcommittee. They've been very active over the past year in helping us move forward a lot of the smaller projects at our landmark sites. So it's a question if they want to continue, and if you don't want to continue, then let's see who else might wish to serve.
Well, I'd be happy to continue.
I also would be happy to continue.
Well, thank you very much for your continued service.
Okay.
Is that something that we would need a motion for, or can we just, their willingness to continue to serve, is that okay?
We probably should have a motion.
We should probably do a motion to make it formal.
Yeah, we need a formal.
Well, then I shall make a motion that Commissioner Matsuno, as well as Commissioner McNerney, continue in that role.
I will second that.
Thank you very much for the second, Commissioner Aziz. Shall we move to a roll call vote?
Yes. Commissioner McNerney,
Aye.
Commissioner Jackson,
Aye.
Vice Chair Matsuno,
Aye.
Commissioner Gittens,
Aye.
Commissioner Aziz,
Aye.
and Chair Caldwell.
Aye.
Thank you.
And our last item before adjournment is our commission items and referrals to staff. Are there any
Chair Caldwell, can I interrupt real quick? I'm sorry.
Oh, yes, of
I
course.
just wanted to just as an item from staff, I think we do have annual report that we need to bring forward, and the CLG report. And Stacy, do you know what the time frame would be for that, or if we have to have a special meeting to get that adopted and approved, or any information that you can provide to us on that?
Yes. So it actually just came to us over the last couple of days. We're a certified local government. We have an excellent preservation program. So as part of that, we submit an annual report on our actions of over the past year. So we'll be preparing that. It's due at the end of April. It needs to come before you. We're meeting every other month per the City Council ordinance adopted last summer. So we'll probably be putting this on the May agenda. Because it's due at the end of April, what we've done in the past is we go ahead and send it to OHP so that's in time, but it will be pending your review and approval. And once we have that, we want to make sure that you support the annual report, and then I will report that back to the state.
Thank you, Stacy.
Excellent.
That was all. Sorry for the interruption.
Oh, no, thank you very much. Are there any commission items and referrals to staff?
I just have one, I guess, announcement, and the staff might already be aware of it, but I thought I would just let the other commissioners know. I received an email, I think it was last week, that the Los Angeles City Planning has temporarily suspended the Mills Act program in Los Angeles. So I thought that was sort of a sad development. I guess they cite budget concerns, but for the moment they're not accepting any sort of new proposals for their Mills Act program.
That's disappointing to hear.
Yeah.
And then one other item, I just wanted to maybe casually mention that, and Stacy could probably chime in here as well. We almost have a full commission, but I think one of the commissioners has declined to serve. And so we just heard about this today. And so we might be short for by one commissioner.
Yeah, it was at the 11th hour. I apologize to Chair Caldwell. I wasn't able to get to you in time. And that's Jeannie Gilliam. She was appointed, of course, by the city council, and she emailed right before the meeting to the city clerk's office noting that she wished to not continue. So we may receive a new appointment over the next couple months.
Well, no pressure, but I think we need to add a Jeannie.
Right? That was quite the coincidence.
There's got to be one. All right. Well, if there's nothing else, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
All right. Thank you again to staff and commissioners. That was a lot of work, so I thought we'd move through it pretty quickly, and I think we got a lot done. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm looking forward to continuing to serve with all of you and learn from all of you as well. So I'm glad to be here.
Look forward to actually meeting again in the council.
Oh, yeah.
Someday.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bye, everybody.
All right.
Good night.
Bye.
Thank you.